Welcome to the Friday Night Drive podcast, South and West Edition. I'm Daily Chronicle sports editor Eddie Carifio, and I am alongside Shaw Media Regional Sports Editor J.T. Pedelty. J.T., how's it going, my man?
It's good, Eddie. How are you? Have you got any sleep since NIU's win?
Technically, I'm coming off about an 8-minute nap right before this started.
Oh, that's all you need.
Yeah, that's really good. We got finished it afterwards, but I'm chalking up that 8 minutes as a win.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You got to be there at South Bend, and just what was the vibe there? I know we're a high school podcast, but when you have
I wasn't expecting to talk about it. This is
when you have the top national football story of the week going, it's pretty exciting, right? I mean, what was the vibe like there?
Yeah, no, it was obviously there are a couple Notre Dame fans at the game. Obviously, it's pretty packed, but it got quiet fast. I mean, obviously in the press box, the sound's kind of muted anyway. But even on that last drive, you're only hearing NIU chants. It was really quite the experience at that game. And then obviously they've just been relishing the effects afterwards. Thomas Hammock has been all over media, all over the place. They had an impromptu media day on Tuesday that they weren't going to do. So just, with them stunning number 5 Notre Dame 16-14, it's just obviously, like you said, the biggest, I would just say, football story of the weekend.
Yeah, just fantastic. Yeah, I was actually at down in Peoria at the Jukebox Comedy Club of all places, and the comedians after their shows were all getting together, be like, "Can you believe Northern Illinois beat?" So it's pretty cool. But you know what? Not a rivalry.
Should we circle back to the comedy club thing? I'm like dying for some answers for this.
Yeah.
So comedy club. Please tell me you got a tight 10 on the Ottawa-LaSalle Peru rivalry.
Oh, well, we'll skip that and we'll just head right straight to Ottawa LP. Unique thing, kind of like the old days, playing twice this year, which is how they got to this being their 125th meeting, despite the fact that they've been playing for only like 125 years. And it hasn't been every year. So 125th meeting. Ottawa's visiting LP. Both teams come in 1-1 this week. LP's had 2 close games, and so they beat United Township 18-16. All right, kind of expected. They only lost 22-14 last Friday at Metamora. Eddie, was that kind of a score that jumps out at you the way it did to me?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially because we were talking about it maybe being a little more than that, but obviously, like you said, it's kind of an eye opener here. For maybe this is LaSalle's got a chance to, and we're back on this again to crack one of those top 4 teams in the conference that they're probably now they have to mathematically get one of those to at least finish 5-4. Although, like we said, they're 4-5, they might have a chance of getting in, but.
Yeah,
I mean that starts with taking care of business against Ottawa, which they're going to have to do twice.
Yeah, Adrian Arzola is a guy who you might want to keep him on your radar. He's already have 2 kickoff return touchdowns. No flex kickoff rules in high school yet, but 2 kickoff return touchdowns and a second touchdown in both games. 1 receiving, 1 rushing. So he's been a weapon for them. Ottawa, meanwhile, lost a close one to Plano in week 1 and did what they've done the past few years in a row and kind of rolled by Streeter in week 2. After Streeter came off a week 1 victory downstate. So, this one between Ottawa and LP, they're going to play twice. They play again in week 6 in Ottawa. That'll be the Interstate 8 one. This one's technically non-conference, which we have another one just like that between Seneca and Ottawa Marquette that we'll talk about in a little bit. The joys of scheduling. But it's last year on the same podcast, we talked repeatedly about that Ottawa LP game. Whoever wins it has a chance to get to 5 wins, has a chance to get to the playoffs. And here we are, they're playing twice. So this is a big one. If someone sweeps, I won't say they're guaranteed to be in the playoffs, but if they can sweep the other, they're at 3 wins already, just looking for 2 more. So big game.
Yeah, with Arzola, no flex rules like you said, but at the high school level, coaches don't hesitate to kick out of bounds or kick away. And you're probably going to start seeing some teams do that here soon. I would imagine if Arzola keeps this up.
Repeatedly, and this is kind of this is probably my favorite part of when we talk every Wednesday or Thursday is when we get into conversations like this. I've seen a big increase in squib kicks, not necessarily onside, but just squibbing it. And usually the other team ends up around the 30, 35. And if you kick it away, the team usually ends up around the 30, 35. It kind of seems like from the games I'm seeing, more teams are going to that if you don't have a kicker who can put it through the back of the end zone.
Yeah, squib kicks are always a dangerous proposition, though, because you still got to execute on that. You don't hit it hard enough. If you hit it at someone and it goes a lot closer than you want it to be, there's still a lot of execution that has to work in that. Where, again, if you're going to end up in the 35, like I said, with a guy like Arzola back there, just, booting it on out of bounds.
No kidding. Well, we talked about a game that's not an Interstate 8 conference game. Let's talk about one that is. I'm sorry. I'm totally sidetracked. I saw you had notes on DeKalb, Caneland, and then DeKalb's not in the conference.
Not yet. Not yet, but
give it time.
There's got to be a change coming, and I think that's DeKalb and someone probably I assume is going to be joining the Interstate 8. I would assume there's a couple people that are not a fan of that in the current conference. I would definitely get why Morris or Rochelle might have their talking from as a whole sports, not just from football, why Morris and Rochelle would have, as barely 3A schools having a problem with the 4A school coming in. Also, because they would probably have to bring along like a Yorkville with them. But anyway, so busy I8. But no, it's definitely one of these games. It's the DeKalb Caneland game. They're playing for the first time since this is our weekly mention of the NIB 12. We should get a sponsor for that. Someone should work on that. To sponsor our NIB 12 mention of the week. The DeKalb Caneland, this is the first time they played since I want to say it was 2018, the last year of the conference. Caneland actually took that one. It was 21-20. It was an absolute thriller of a game. This year, it's going to be very interesting. DeKalb they're coming in 0-2. They have led in the fourth quarter of both of their games against Sycamore and Plainfield South, I want to say. Yeah. Sycamore played Oswego East. DeKalb played Plainfield South. It is confusing the hell out of me.
There's a lot of directions.
Yeah. So, and I cover Northern. So, sorry.
And I went to Southern.
Yeah.
Yeah. Directions everywhere.
DeKalb is 0-2 with the led in the fourth quarter of both their games against those teams. Caneland's 2-0, and I think we mentioned it on this podcast. I mentioned it to anyone who will listen about Caneland that their strength of schedule this year was kind of ridiculous. 7 of the 9 teams they played this year made the playoffs last year. This is one of those 2 teams that did not, but Coach Michael Thorgerson, talking to him earlier in the week, said, for all intents and purposes, DeKalb's a playoff team. They're a class ahead of Caneland. They've got just an absolutely dynamic passing game. Is when you talk about Devon Grant and quarterback Cole Latimer. It's kind of been the issue that they haven't gotten a lot going in the run game this year, and when dimensional is a little more turnovers. Latimer's thrown a couple picks. He's what you would label as a gunslinger, I believe. But I mean, honestly, if you had someone with the vertical leap of Devon Grant on your team, you'd be a gunslinger too, I think. So this is going to be a really intriguing matchup, and one, I don't often regret not being able to go to games. I know the Sycamore Mamet game, even with a 2.5-hour drive ahead of me, is going to be a great game, but I don't regret that I don't get to see DeKalb Caneland.
Yeah, and DeKalb's, 0-2, but they're pretty good, right? I mean, everything I'm seeing, how the games have played out. Sometimes it's tough to follow games around the state. You always have people on the sideline. Hey, how's this game? Hey, how's this guy? I don't know. I'm watching this game and keeping stats and tweeting out. But everything I've seen from DeKalb, they might be all right.
Yeah, the potential's there. Getting the 5 wins now is going to be a challenge, obviously, especially if they start 0-3 and lose to Caneland, which, given the kind of year Caneland's had, Giant Killers now can kill a literal giant, a team bigger than them. But
I thought you meant Alden Hebron.
Yeah, or them, no, Depew is the Little Giants, right?
Yeah, and their logo's Bam Bam. rubble.
Yeah, they never got sued for that.
Well, I don't think Hanna-Barbera knows.
But no, completely intriguing game. DeKalb, like two fourth quarter leads, a bounce here, a throw goes a different way there, and you're looking at a 2-0 team. So it's been a couple of tough luck losses for them, but the schedule's not getting any easier for them. And once playing that new conference starts, it's a little easier than the DuPage. I think that was the whole design of it, was to make it a little easier, but it's still going to be a hell of a challenge.
The best laid plans of mice and athletic directors.
Yeah.
Before we're going to be joined by Kevin Hieronymus. We're going to talk a little Princeton football. Huge win for them last week. But before we get to that, since we're talking a little bit of Interstate 8, we have Peoria High at Morris, a couple of 2-0 versus 2-0 matchup coming up. And, there are a lot of questions about Peoria High's football program. For those of us a little more northern that aren't familiar, they score points. They score a lot of points.
A couple.
And they don't really care all that much about defense, or at least it doesn't show on the field. They spend their time working on scoring points. So they've won 50.
Which they did in 2022 against Morris.
76-56 final in the 5A semifinals in 2022, knocked out Morris. And then I believe Peoria High went on to lose by 1 in another shootout in the championship game to Naz, maybe. But whatever the case may be, so far Peoria High, their coach Tim Thornton left, their head coach, to pursue a coaching career in Florida, and but so far they've won 56-21 over Champaign Centennial and 46-40 over Peoria Notre Dame. So
those are some low-scoring games. I mean, obviously the defense is
they've really stepped off a little. They've only scored 112 points through 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So you know what? Should be a fun matchup. Morris is one of those teams. They're 2-0. They've won their games, but kind of people, I think there's still some question marks about them the way they've won. Joliet West led into the second half against them. Coal City hung with them for a half. So, both good programs. Joliet West, definitely a program that, broke through last year with maybe the best season in school history and has some players back, but kind of reloading a bit, just like Morris. But Morris, quarterback Brady Varner, running back Griffin Zwiers, wide receiver Jack Wheeler, a U of I baseball recruit. They still have athletes. They're still Morris. This should be a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. A game of the week of the ones we're about to talk about here. And there are some good ones. But, it's really weird talking about Morris having questions when you look at, not only the pedigree Morris has had the last couple of years, but they are 2-0. Yet there are still those questions. And I think most of them, if not all of them, get answered this week. It's definitely a big game. And, players these days are ever since the Patriots, no one believes in us. It's the best motivating tool there is. So Morris can absolutely toss that out there. No one believed in us, and we silenced the haters.
And it's fun because I'm pretty sure that's how people feel down in Peoria. I mean, I'm pretty sure. The coach left. He's the one who saved our program. Now we're going to tank. Well, there they are. They're both 2-0. One of them's going to be 3-0 after this week. And the Morris Pep Band better get ready to play the fight song a lot of times.
See, the problem with that whole line of thought is, let's say Morris wins, right? So, okay, Morris proves the haters wrong. Does that mean the haters were right about Peoria High? Or is it like, is it a non-zero sum and like the haters still could possibly be right about, like, I don't know how hater economics works.
Exactly. All you got to know is 3 words, Eddie. Haters gonna hate. Now's a great chance, as promised, to bring on Kevin Hieronymus from the Bureau County Republican. Kevin, covers obviously the Princeton team very closely. Also got a little bit of Bureau Valley action coming up this weekend. Kevin, how's it going?
Good. Going good, guys, in Bureau County.
Excellent. Beautiful here in LaSalle. And Eddie, you'd be in DeKalb County?
I'm in an undisclosed. Yeah, obviously. I'm supposed to be blurred and have my voice distorted. I hope that they follow through on that promise.
You were the Super Witness program, weren't you?
I was.
The odd thing is I actually know where Eddie lives because my aunt is his neighbor. He's probably the only person who I do know who lives of my coworkers. But, Kevin, I won't say
quickly moving on, Kevin.
Yes. But, Kevin, if you would, kind of real nice win for Princeton last week, beat Rock Ridge 27-18 in kind of a matchup of two teams that are kind of always powers in the Three Rivers, the track. How'd that game play out? And I think Princeton's another of those teams. We talked about Morris and Peoria High that people were like, well, we expect them to be good. They're not going to fall off a cliff, but they lost some stuff. How good are they going to be? And I think Princeton's answering any doubt so far.
Oh, yeah, you're going to see another typical Ryan Pearson Tiger team this year. Of course, Rock Ridge is a very strong program themselves. Gave the Tigers everything they could handle, especially in the first half. Their sophomore quarterback was kind of picking apart the defense a little bit. I think Ryan Pearson's biggest strength is he's able to make the necessary adjustments, and they made them at halftime basically completely shut down the Rockets' passing game. Got a few more yards, but their quarterback had like 218 yards first half and maybe 70 more. But, it was still anybody's game until the Tigers kind of used their secret weapon, Ian Morris, new kicker who jokingly told everybody he'd break the school record this year kicking, and he sure enough he tied it with the 37-yarder.
Yeah, you did a feature story on him. I suggest everyone, if you're interested, go to Friday Night Drive. It's a really good story. He didn't expect to be kicking at all, much less setting school records, right?
No, not really. He was I think he was joking. Pearson said he was 100% serious, but he showed Ryan he had the leg and the accuracy. Princeton's had good kickers, but maybe not a good field goal kicker in the past. And Ian kicked a 37-yarder in the third quarter, and then the next possession he added a 29-yarder, and that was the only points Tigers got. That put them up 2 scores, and they went on to win 27-18.
Looking at coaches don't want to look ahead. We can look ahead, though. That's why they pay us the big bucks. The schedule looks very favorable for what, obviously I am not what you would call a expert on the track, but the schedule here looks pretty favorable coming up for Princeton to, end up with a pretty good seed by the time the playoffs roll around.
I would say they've probably played their toughest 2 games already with Newman and Rock Ridge, and those were crossover games. A trip down to Monmouth, Roseville certainly won't be easy. That's week 5, I believe. Princeton, it'll be the 3rd straight trip the Tigers have made the long trip down there. Last year's opener, and then the first round of the playoffs last year. And Monmouth's got another strong team. I can say, we're the predictors, forecasters. I see the Tigers running the table this year.
Yeah, that's what I was hitting at. I'm glad you said that.
And Kevin, I know you spend most of your time with Princeton, but this weekend, if I read the schedules right, Kevin Klum will be with Princeton, and you're going to be with Bureau Valley, which is kind of a new experience for Bureau Valley. They open up a new play in the Lincoln Trail Prairie Land as they left the Three Rivers. Talk a little bit about that game, if you would, and kind of Bureau Valley and just fitting into that conference. I think they open play against Lewistown, Cuba, Spoon River, which I've lived my entire life in Illinois, and I don't think I could point to any of them on a map. I think I have an idea where they'd be just based on the conference they're in.
I bet you they're all close together.
I'm with you on that, wherever it may be. But if you would, just talk about Bureau Valley entering this new conference and kind of how you see that playing out.
Yeah, it's been a whole new thing for Bureau Valley. They're going to have to get their gas up the bus and get the road maps out. They're going to average, I think about, I figured out 108 average one-way, 108-mile one-way trip this year.
Oh, you're going to trigger Eddie. You're going to trigger Eddie.
Yeah.
Muhammad.
It will get better next year. Bureau Valley went into the Bureau Valley and Aledo Mercer counties basically traded places. Mercer County came to the Three Rivers, so the Storm took over their schedule in the large school division. And what I understand next year, they're going to make it more geographical, so they won't have maybe the long trips to like Macomb and Carthage. They'll be picking up Anawan, Weathersfield, Stark County, probably Princeville and Rovit, schools closer to them. So after this one, first year on making long road trips, it'll get better.
Yeah. And, it's kind of, we did our NIB 12 mention. We'll do our NCIC mention now. We're all guys who kind of had some history in the NCIC a little bit.
Before my time. I've only been there since 2014.
Kevin and I are old. But one of the interesting things is it always seems to go the other direction. It always seems to break large, small, or blah, blah, blah. I'm really interested that they're thinking of making a move to going to geography to base it. I think that's probably a stronger model if the teams can compete with each other for sustainability. I mean, if you talk to anyone who was around, when the NCIC broke up, or, you insert conference here, the NIB 12, anything, once you start breaking up by school size, the small schools inevitably start being like, man, why do I got to play this crossover? Why are we competing for the same? Why is it one conference for basketball? Let's split for basketball too. Let's split for baseball too. Let's split for softball too. And inevitably the conferences start drifting apart when you go large, small. So I find that really interesting that the Lincoln Trail Prairieland is making a look at Lincoln Trail is going to more geography based.
Yeah, I don't think that's maybe 100% set in stone, but that is the talk out there and kind of the game plan. It'll make things easier. The Bureau Valley won't be playing the bigger schools because they're more farther down south, like Macomb and Carthage. So it'll be a much better scenario for the Storm starting next year.
Well,
not that this year's bad, not bad at all, but it'll be just travel wise, it'll make it more
And proximity creates rivalries. Familiarity breeds contempt.
I mean, Bureau Valley and Anawan Wethersfield, they're like real close, so they'll definitely become big rivals for sure.
Know much about this Lewistown, Cuba, Spoon River, McGillicuddy co-op?
I know they've had their struggles here in recent years. I would foresee the Storm kicking off with a good game. Should get a win, I think, in the first conference game.
Well, enjoy the it's at home for Bureau Valley, so enjoy the short trip to Manlius, and we will talk with you down the road this season, Kevin.
All right, guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.
I see you, man. Wait, I'm sorry. That's how it's pronounced. Here's another one I didn't know how it was pronounced. Manliness?
Just Manlius.
Oh, still. I don't know how I thought it was pronounced, but hearing it, I guess.
At least I think it is. And, he mentioned Newman Central Catholic out of Sterling, and that was one game I wanted to touch on a little bit, Eddie. Newman's 1-1. They got well last week after that week 1 loss to Princeton. They beat up on Mendota 42-0. They're at a 2-0 Erie Prophetstown team this week. I almost said Erie Prophets team.
That also looked good.
Yes, but Newman scored on offense, defense, and special teams last week, and Erie Prophetstown breezed by Hall 41-7. Erie Prophetstown has a dual threat quarterback, passer runner Keegan Winkler, who had 158 yards rushing, 56 passing. Those are Justin Fields numbers. But like Justin Fields with the Steelers in his debut, a win's a win, and Erie Prophetstown got to 2-0. I think this one could be interesting. I think Newman's the favorite, even though they have a loss on their ledger, but I think it should be a pretty good game, Eddie.
Yeah, no, and it's gonna, we were just talking with Kevin about Princeton's schedule and the possibility of them running the table. Pointing out Erie Prophetstown is the I know Kevin pointed out Monmouth is a potential hiccup. Erie Prophetstown, I believe, just having looked at it, is Princeton's week 9 game. So this might help also spell out their schedule a little bit. Yeah, but no, looking at this week, staying in the present, we're going to learn. We're going to see just how well Newman got, I guess.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good matchup, or has the potential to be a good matchup, I guess. Another one that I think coming this way, we talked earlier about Ottawa and LP playing each other in a non-conference game and then playing each other later in the season, a conference game. That's the same story. Seneca's visiting Marquette at down here in Ottawa at the confluence of the Fox and Illinois rivers, as I write sometimes when I'm feeling poetic. First of 2 meetings this year. They'll meet again week 8 in Seneca. That'll be the Chicagoland Prairie matchup. But this one, Seneca 2-0, Marquette's 1-1. New look Seneca, lots of new players from the team that went undefeated the past 2 regular seasons. Kind of looks like old look Seneca. 391 yards rushing last week out of that power T formation. in beating Lisle, shutting out Lisle. They've outscored their opponents 83-22 last year. And Marquette, it's the same story as always. You plug in some new running backs into Tom Yep's wing T offense. In this case, Grant Doze and Peyton Gutierrez both ran for over 100 yards last week, way down the state in Madison, Illinois, not Wisconsin, which would be up and not in the state. But Marquette, kind of the same deal as Seneca, kind of plug in some more players and it's more of the same. I think this should be a really fun matchup. It's a really fierce rivalry. And I think this should be a good one between Seneca and Marquette.
Yeah, and not that you'd get coaches to admit it or anything, but you've got to wonder how the effect of playing teams twice and knowing that you've got the team a second time. I'm curious, like if that does have some kind of effect on things. But it gives coaches a little more freedom to try something, maybe throw it to the, maybe Marquette's thrown to the tight end 3 times instead of twice.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yes.
Because obviously I can make these wing T jokes, Kingston up here obviously runs a similar offense. They've been we're going to talk about them a lot next week, Kingston. They got Oregon this week. They took care of North Boone in their first conference game, 34-0. They obviously opened with Leo with a big win. They're doing it. They threw 8 times, 3 for touchdowns in that first game. So that's crazy numbers. This.
Yeah, I remember when I was first starting early 2000s, and Sterling always ran that wing T, and like one year they had a talented quarterback or a talented receiver or both, and they'd throw the ball like 8 times a game, and just everyone was like totally in shock that a team would do that. But the wing T, people talk about it being 3 yards in a cloud of dust and stuff like that. But traditionally it is that thing where you might only throw the ball 8 times a game, but like 6 of them are home run shots. So because you do get the entire defense crowding at the line and doing that. And the same is true of Seneca's power T. So when you see teams in those old school formations, it doesn't mean they can't hurt you through the air.
Yeah, and the Cogs showed that week 1. Obviously, Marquette has showed that when they needed to. So you see it throughout with these teams running it. So no, with the Cogs, it's going to be interesting. Should take business against Oregon, but I mean it sets up a showdown with a Dixon in week 4. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Dixon. We've talked a lot about Byron in that conference. There's only 3 undefeated teams left in the Big Northern, and it's those 3, Byron, Dixon, and GK. So things are a little surprising, I'll say it, to see GK in the mix. They were one of those in that Morris mold, not sure what they were going to bring back. There were questions. They hate us because they ain't us, whatever you want to say. But that North Boone win was definitely a statement against a playoff team from a year ago, and now they get to play a team that North Boone already beat this year. So,
also saw in your notes you're interested in talking about Byron Williamsville a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely that one is worth a mention. That was one of the games that obviously with Rockford Christian dropping 11-man football. Byron Scramble got the Williamsville game. It is going to be a doozy. I mean, we knew it was going to be a doozy when they announced it. Williamsville obviously has that state pedigree, get far in the playoffs every year. I think we've documented Byron's success, and if we haven't, literally everyone else has. Just how we should point out that just how young Byron is. I think something gets overlooked every time. They have a freshman contributing. I want to say receiver this year. You think, okay, well, this is it. This is the last class. And then, boom, they have a freshman impact player on a team that was 14-0 last year. So, Byron Williamsville, this is going to be a really good one. On the Bullets this year, 105-41. They've won their 2 games by. Byron has won their 2 games, 105-25. So, if math means anything, both teams will score 57.5 points this week.
And for those of you following at home, Eddie mentioned kind of the big matchups coming up down the pike here for Byron. Week 6, Genoa Kingston will visit Byron, and then week 8, Byron has to go to Dixon. So those will be kind of ones to look forward to. But first up, Williamsville, which I think as Eddie said, should be a really good game. There was one other team I'd like to touch on, and they kind of fall in between everyone's coverage areas, so they don't get as much press or is looked at as much. Is Dwight Gardner South Wilmington, hosted in Dwight at the Co-op. They're off to a 2-0 start. They play in that Chicagoland Prairie. And kind of I actually saw them getting some votes on the first Associated Press football poll down in 1A, 2A. I think they might be in 2A, though they go 1A sometimes with that Co-op. But they'll be at Aurora Central Catholic, who's 1-1, who is not a member of the Chicagoland Prairie, but based on their schedule, might as well be because they play not everybody. But the question is Dwight for real? What's going on? They went 5-5 last year. They kind of snuck into the playoffs. I saw them. I actually got to see Dwight at a 7-on-7 this summer that they hosted, and it was kind of their first contact, like their second contact day that they had the entire thing. So it was really early, but I was very impressed by the vibe. So if you ask me, is Dwight for real? I would say, yeah. I mean, they've outscored their two opponents so far, Dakota and St. Edward, 100-8. So that's a good ratio. That's not bad. That'd be 20.
Yeah, I mean, you don't fluke your way. You don't fluke your way into a margin of victory like that twice.
Exactly.
Unless there was like one 90-0 game and the other game was 10-8. Then maybe.
Maybe this one should be a bigger test for Dwight, for the Trojans. I know their leaders in the summer were kind of running back, monster back Dylan Crouch, linebacker Evan Cox, running back Caden Nelson. The interesting thing about their schedule is that the Chicagoland Prairie, a lot of the teams that weren't very competitive last year, that forfeited games a few days ahead of time or weren't able to keep up with some of the teams, they left. So it's only a 5-team conference, and a lot of them are playing each other twice, or seeking outside games, and that's kind of toughened up everyone's schedules a little bit. You kind of took away those easier games of kind of some of those small suburban programs. So I think Dwight, it'll be interesting. They got to play Marquette twice. Also, just looking at their schedule, I don't know when we'll mention Dwight again. I just want to mention it's the first time I've ever seen they play both Marquettes in the state this year. They play Ottawa Marquette in weeks 4 and 9 and Alton Marquette in week 8. I don't know that I've ever seen it before. Maybe it's happened. That'd be a Steve Susie question. And he just
and playing 1/3 and playing 1/3 of your schedule against Marquettes.
Yes, 1/3 of their schedule is against Marquettes, and you never know, might see them in the playoffs. So it might go up some. But
can they get both of the playoffs, and then over half their schedule will have been against the Marquettes? I doubt they're all the same class.
I don't know. Any other games kind of coming up tomorrow night or Saturday stick out to you, Eddie?
Well, the one that I touch on just really quick, I've mentioned the drive down to Mahomet for the Sycamore Mahomet Seymour game. Obviously, this comes about just like all the other long travels everyone has to go with because of, you can't always find teams, especially if you're not in an 8 or 10 team conference, which neither Sycamore nor Mahomet Seymour is. So Mahomet, it's Mahomet, right?
Mahomet.
See, I want to say Mahomet. That's where I'm going instantly, but it's Mahomet. This is going to be really interesting because the Bulldogs aerial attack, they've thrown for more than 800 yards this year in a couple games. I think they come in 1-1, having lost in overtime last week. Sycamore, that pass defense, loaded studs. That's where Burke Goucher going to Iowa as a linebacker. He plays back there. Carter York's getting some D1 looks. He's the other safety. They've given up some passing yards this year. Now, part of that was from playing DeKalb, and DeKalb's going to get some passing yards against you with, like we talked about, the weaponry we have. But they gave up one big play against Oswego East last week where they kind of got beat for, I think it was a touchdown or led to the touchdown. So there's been some lapses there. It's not 100% what they thought it was. They thought they'd be a 10 out of 10. It's been about an 8 out of 10. So they're obviously looking to get that up to the next level. So it's that should be a really interesting matchup. And that is the one I will be at. For as exciting as the Calvin Canelan is going to be, because again, 2 local teams always takes the cake, and also having to travel 20 minutes to Maple Park as opposed to 2.5 hours to basically Champaign.
Yes,
but no, it's gonna be a good game. So that's about the last one I wanted to touch on here. I don't know. Are you familiar much with the greater Mahomet area?
Well, there used to be a bar restaurant there named J.T's that was excellent. I mean, the name obviously is a great sign, but I believe that closed down. There's a real good breakfast place with a giant like ceramic rooster out front. So if you're hungry, but other than that, not a lot. I kind of drive by Mahomet more than I go into Mahomet. So I will be, unlike you, close to home this Friday. I have hey, I went to Decatur week 1. I'll be of Coal City visiting Streeter. I'm hoping it's a closer game than kind of the way things have played out suggest, or past meetings suggest. Streeter kind of wants a more hard-nosed approach, kind of wants to become a Coal City. And, Jordan Lukes has I believe he has 147-yard and 150-yard rushing performance so far. Be interesting to see how he does against Coal City. However, he is not my pick to click, my player to click. We never named it or got a spot.
Pick to click, JT.
Now that's how you do a segue. You know what? I'm going a little bit outside of my normal coverage area, and the team we talked about earlier, Dixon. Eli Davidson, wide receiver for Dixon / running back / if you think Debo Samuel, you're probably not that far off in the way the Dukes use them. Dixon's coming off a 35-0 shutout of Oregon, and their first points of that game were Eli Davidson taking a short pass, medium range pass, and breaking the school record with a 99-yard catch and run from quarterback Colin Shaner. So they also
never going to be broken.
Tied only can be tied. But yeah, he finished with 121 yards receiving, so he only had 22 other than that. But also had 58 yards rushing, like I said, a Debo Samuel stat line. So I see him for a big game in line for a big game. They're visiting 0-2 Rock Falls, so short trip. And against an 0-2 team, I think Eli Davidson, a little shot in the arm from a 99-yard school record touchdown thing. I could see him having a big game again this week.
You're going outside your coverage area. I'm going smack dab into the middle of mine. Going with Travis Moore from DeKalb, defensive lineman. Has the ability to play running back. I don't know how much he played. I don't think he played much in the Plainfield South game. Didn't play in the Sycamore game at running back, but doesn't matter. Great defensive lineman. That whole DeKalb defensive line is really strong. They're going to need to be against Canelan. Canelan's defense has kind of been their strength this year, so if DeKalb can match that, limit some Canelan points, let their offense cook the way that they can cook, it could be a lot of things. It's also worth pointing out about Travis Moore is that he is Travis Moore Jr., whose father, Travis Moore Sr., is a defensive line coach for the NIU Huskies. So I think there's a lot of momentum, a lot of positive juice around him right now. So I think that makes him my click to pick.
And for our podcast, it's a beautiful Ouroboros right there with open with little NIU.
Cut it. We're done.
Yep. Open our high school podcast with NIU talk and close it with NIU talk. Go ahead and take us out, Eddie. I'll see everyone on the sidelines.
Yeah, that was J.T. Pedelty. I'm Eddie Carifio. All our work available at FridayNightDrive.com. Thanks for watching and listening. Take care.